Emotional connection to physical pain. Have you ever walked into a room and seen a picture setting on the wall and wasn't exactly straight? And you didn't dare go over and move it because it was someone else's home, but through the evening it just bothered you, and finally you moved over and straightened the picture when no one was looking? Or do you have a husband that the toilet paper needs to come off the front of the roll? Or maybe you like it off the back of the roll. But if it's not coming off the way you want it to come off, do you get all excited and have to change it? How about the toothpaste that goes in the middle? Or should it be rolled up from the very bottom? Or some people just flat don't care. Have you ever stopped and wondered why certain things bother certain people? I have this grandson that just loves playing when he's in the bathtub. And he lines up all these dinosaurs, and they're facing towards the front of the tub. And he's playing and doing stories and doing his Jurassic Park and everything. And as I walk by, I just grab one of the dinosaurs, pick it up, turn around, and face it the other way, and set it back down and walk on by. Oh, he gets so upset. Grandpa, they don't face that way. They face this way. And he picks it up and turns it, sets it back down. All these different little quirks that we don't think much about has a very huge part in our life. Two people can be in a car accident, and one person go away and go, whew, that was like bumper cars at the theme park. And the other person is emotionally traumatized for years from that same exact experience. You know, as I started looking at these things, many questions came into my mind. Why? Why do people look at things so differently? Why can't people just look at it the way I do? And quickly it started to really surface that there are different temperaments that we are innately born with. And basically there are four, and they were identified by Hippocrates and then Disraeli later on, and then Galland in 149 BC. And they named these temperaments, and there's a lot of different temperament theories out there, but I like the one that goes clear back to the very beginning, the first person, Hippocrates. He named them sanguine, choleric, phlegmatic, and melancholy. And these four temperaments have a lot to do with the way you look at life, how you react to life, how you look at different aspects of life. And so just really quickly here, I wanted to lay these out before we talk about this here emotional connection to physical pain, because these temperaments have a lot to do with how you view life and view circumstances within your life. So let's talk a little bit about sanguine. Sanguine is the first temperament that we'll talk about. The reason why is because this is the fun-loving temperament. This is what a lot of people refer to as the airhead. They're very impulsive. They will do anything on the spur of the moment. They love to party. Everything is fun. They're super optimistic. The negative thing about these guys is they are super forgetful. They would forget their head if it was not tied on. But they are the best storytellers and actors and comedians because they have more adjectives to describe one action than any person that you know. And this temperament here is very, very quick to things. Something happens that's, oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's so fantastic. I can't wait to do that. But it's short-lived. They're on to the next moment. And then we have the choleric personality. This here has a very sustained response. It's very quick response, but then it's very sustained. These guys are amazing. They are the dominant ruler type. They are very my way or the highway, take charge, get things done, very planning and acting out those plans instantly. They're a born leader. And you can see a child early on in life in the choleric role as they stand at the top of the stairs with their little hands on their hip, and they'll have their fingers going, and they will say things like, my daddy can beat up your daddy, or you will play the game the way I want you to play it, or you can go home. This is really the choleric temperament, and when a situation happens to them, it's very quick and it's sustained. And so that is your choleric temperament. And your melancholy temperament, This is a really slow response, but with a sustained action. And so the melancholy are your quieter people. They're more your artistic, your musicians, your inventors, your philosophers, your doctors. They're very thoughtful and planning. Oh, charts and graphs. They love stuff like they're usually really evolved with a lot of numbers because they just love everything to function and be in its place. And if that dinosaur is turned the wrong way, it drives them nuts. If the picture's crooked, oh, the world is falling. They must straighten it. They must have organization and control in their life, and if they don't, then they have this very slow response to get all upset, but then that action and that response is sustained for a long, long period of time. Your final temperament is phlegmatic, and your phlegmatic is your getting type. This here is your diplomat, your accountants, your teachers, your technicians, the guys that are really love the status quo situation. They don't like to upset anyone. They like to keep everything on an even keel. Don't get angered very fast because they're a very slow response to something, but they get over it very easily. And so that is your amazing phlegmatic. His weaknesses are they are proverbial procrastinators. Now, one of the things that you have to look at here is that you can be a blend of multiple of these temperaments. You could be a sanguine choleric phlegmatic, which would be a party animal who is very organized, that is kind of late for their own party. Or you could be a melancholy choleric sanguine, so you could be an organized, bossy party animal. Or you could be a phlegmatic, melancholy choleric. You could be a procrastinating, organized boss. And so those temperaments are quite important in your life. And here's the key. When you have some kind of a trauma, and we're going to describe different traumas in your life, and it might shock you later on when we describe these different traumas, how something you might think that isn't a trauma is actually a larger trauma than if you were in a car wreck or had someone die or was diagnosed with a terminal illness. But here's the key. Whatever temperament is present at the time that that event happened is how you will store the trauma or the emotions of that event. And that is such an important aspect when you stop and look at these temperaments. That's why two people can be in a car wreck. One person come out and go, whew, that was amazing. I got all my parts and pieces. I'm ready to go. And the other person comes out of it and they're suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. That's something that is just, you know, guys, I'm telling you, it is really amazing. Other things, some people can be in a situation and they think they're fine and everything, and all of a sudden they start developing pain in different regions of their body. And you're going to get the first peek tonight of a chart that we're putting together to help you understand how different emotions affect different parts of your body. And so you'll just get a peek at the chart today where it's going to be all put on brand and taken care of, so it looks really nice and very, very easy for you to share to someone. And so this chart, when you start looking at it, you'll start to see how when you start storing the emotion of that event in different areas in your body, that's where you have a change of chemistry in your body. You change the hormone level, you change all kinds of things, the adrenaline, the cortisol, all these different hormones and neurotransmitters are changed to a degree that all of a sudden you start having an event in your body and you're wondering, what in the world's going on? I don't remember doing this, I don't remember hurting myself. Oh man, I am hurting so bad. And so you go to the doctor and they do all their workup and they do their x-rays and everything like that and MRIs. They can't find anything. Here's some statistics. 90% of chronic pain is due to an emotional upset or trauma. And 80% of visits to primary care physicians are traced back to emotional roots. And so when you start looking at the statistics, guys, it's crazy how this emotional connection can tie to different areas of your body to create the kind of pain. And it starts right here with the temperaments. If you're a sanguine, you can be upside down in a car that is completely demolished, and you'll come out of it just fine. You won't have long-lasting because it's quick response with a short-lived action. And so you get over it very quick. You don't store it. You just move right through it. Whereas a melancholy, if they're in that same problem, they would literally, fall apart. And as the days go by, that becomes worse and worse and worse. The pain becomes more and more and more intense as that trauma continues to go in and change so much of the chemistry of the human body. So it's really important to understand that we really need to take a look at where we are with our temperaments so that we can actually understand how we're storing. Because as we store that trauma, that event, when we start going through the work to release that event or that trauma, it will be released by the same temperament in which stored it in our body. So that's a really integral part of how we work with understanding emotional connection to physical pain. But if we were to take a look at the chart, we can see very quickly that we don't just store in one or two areas, but we store in multiple areas within the body. And that's what makes it really kind of amazing here. If you take a look at this, you got your head, your neck, your spine, your upper spine, your middle spine, your lower spine, your shoulders, wrists, hips, knees, feet, and ankles. All these areas are areas where you will literally store that emotion of that event, depending on a couple things. Now, some of the things that will dictate where you store that emotion will be your temperaments is one. Number two is a weak spot, physically. If you've had an injury somewhere in your body, that now is a weak spot where these emotional traumas can actually be stored and set in there. So if we take a look at this emotional pain chart, it's kind of amazing. Look at the head. Stress and anxiety, irritability, that's, guys, just think about that. That's pretty powerful. And so when you're undergoing those kind of emotions, no wonder people, they say, oh, I feel like I have a band around my head, or oh man, I have this pain behind my eye. All kinds of pain in that whole cranium region can deal with a lot of the emotions that are going on of an event that has transpired or something that has upset your ability to be in control of yourself. Look at the neck, guys. Look at it's kind of amazing. Stubbornness, inflexibility. It really kind of sets in there. Spine. It's amazing. Look at this. Represents the support for your social support. I mean, your life, your social life and support. If it's out of whack, your upper spine. Lack of emotional support, feeling like you don't have that social, emotional support within your body. It holds up your whole back bone and everything. Your middle back, guilt, stuck in the past, inability to forgive, or inability to trust. Your lower back, fear about money, uncertain of the future, lack of financial support and structure in your life. Shoulders, inability to enjoy life, low self-esteem, low self-confidence, being your own worst enemy. That's kind of you stop and think about this. Probably some of you are sitting there right now going, oh man, yeah. Your wrist, isolation. You do not allow others to be part of your life or trust a circle of friends or influence. And so here you're having a lot of challenges that can go all the way over into carpal tunnel and other challenges along with that. When you look at your knees, you this is a powerful one here for your knees. We'll move the chart over there so you can see that. It is not wanting to move, huh? There we go. Down, okay. All right, so knees, stubborn pride and ego, inability to bend and won't give in for love or support. There's your stubbornness. So if you're a choleric, where you're the highway or the highway, you know, and you have trauma, you could have a lot of challenges in the knee area. Hips, fear of change, afraid of making major life decisions. A lot of problems in that area. Feet and ankles, won't let others love you, lack of pleasure, or the inability to feel pleasure. So guys, you can kind of take a look at this chart, and as I say, you get the first peek at it today. But this here is something that really resonates with understanding how good your body is designed to feel. And when it's not feeling well, there are real reasons. It's not just a psychosomatic problem. There are real physical reasons why that these things have happened to you. And instead of pushing it all over into an area of doggone, it's all in your head, no guys, it's actually in the body. There's a certain amount of carryover that can come from fear and stuff like that involved with emotional upset. But guys, there is such a chemistry change within the body. And when that body chemistry change happens and you store that trauma there, you know, oxygen levels drop, neurotransmitters drop, cortisol levels rise, adrenaline rises within these areas. You have a lack of circulation, inflammation, and all of a sudden all these here things kind of come together as the perfect storm, and we start having these different pains in different regions, and no one can explain why, but they all can be traced back to an emotional event. And so that's why when we stop and look at emotional trauma's connection to physical pain, it makes so much sense. And so what we'd like to do right now is just spend a little bit of time. I'm going to turn this over to Ori. He's going to talk to you a little bit about the psychoneuroimmunology aspect of how that works with your body and your mind and spirit, and can create and show more of the science of how this flow can happen in your body that can create this here connection between the body, the emotional trauma, and physical pain. So Ori?
All right, guys, I apologize. I wasn't expecting to come up. So give me a second, and I'll be up here.
You want this? You want the board?
Yep. But if I'm coming up with help. All right. We're going to have to adjust the zoom on the camera. You want to fix that for me, please? Bring it up. Yeah, bring it up. There we go. Okay. All right, guys, let's talk about a few things real quick. I have my handy-dandy whiteboard. It's going to help me out. So I want to talk about a few things, and I know we want to try to keep these trainings to roughly 20 minutes, and we're over by 5, by 8. So I'm going to keep this really brief and really short. So the conversation, or the topic of today's training was the emotional connection to physical pain. And Dana did a great job to explain the different temperaments that allow us to store emotions. Now, I want you to understand, when we're talking about emotions, typically it goes from an outward place to a more inward place. So if we have emotional pain, we might realize it first manifests in the knees or the lower back, but pretty soon it starts to manifest more inward and more towards the center line. So what that means is, here I got this pain in my knees or something, but all of a sudden I start having this chest congestion, and then it moves into, my heart feeling like it's got pressure, and then it moves into something else, or it manifests in some type of disease, cancer, diabetes or something. So it'll start more externally, and then it will move deeper and more medial. And so when we go through emotional releases, it's important for you to understand that we'll also release the same way. Okay? So when we release, it will go from a more inward medial place to a more outward place. And so it's not uncommon, people going through emotional releases, to start, they go through the release, and all of a sudden some of these original complaints they had of, head congestion or respiratory issues or something relieves, but all of a sudden the knee pain comes back, and I'm well, what did you do to me? Well, it's how the body releases. But I want you to understand a few things. So when we talk about psychoneuroimmunology, it's the connection between the nervous system, the immune system, and the endocrine system, which the endocrine system is where all your glands, like your sebaceous gland that creates sweat, and where your hormones and all those different things are created. So, but what I want you to understand, this is really important, when we're talking about the immune system, when we're talking about the nervous system, we're really talking about an action potential. So I'm going to just kind of write this up here. I'm going to say action potential. And what an action potential is, I'm going to spell this wrong. Potential. If I spelled it wrong, you can yell at me later. What an action potential is it's how the entire nervous system works. So when your body, when the nerves are at rest, meaning they don't have any signals going through them, they're at a roughly negative 70 millivolts. Okay? What ends up happening is as an action comes through, sodium rushes into the cell, and potassium rushes out of the cell. That's actually a K, sorry. Rushes out of the cell, and that creates a change in the electrical current of the cell. So it goes from negative 70 to roughly negative 20 millivolts. And that's what fires a signal from the nerve up the chain to tell the brain that there's something going on. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is what they found out is that, so if this was the cell, right, this is your nerve cell, and these are the dendrite pieces that come out, so these are where the signals come from, and then you have the long tail that goes down that connects to another one of your nerve cells. What they found is that these action potentials don't only happen in nerve cells. They used to think that was the only place nerve cells happen, but they're finding that the immune system actually can trigger these exact same impulses or an action potential. So what does that mean? It means that it's signaling responses that the brain is not originally making, which puts the whole body in a whole chain of reaction. So if you think about this, so your brain is the master communicator, right? So when the brain gets a signal, it will then send communication to all the other organs or glands involved. So let's say we're sitting there and we had this emotional connection. Let's say we had a car accident. And anytime we see a car accident or hear the screeching of a brake, we automatically go into this panic mode. Well, in this panic mode, we've trained our immune system to be hyper vigilant, meaning it's just going to respond really quick and it's going to rush the entire body. You get this jolt of adrenaline. Well, in that process, we've also trained our body to overexcite ourselves as far as anxiety and stress and these different hormones, which reduces the immune system's ability to be as effective. So here this slamming on the brake comes, and the immune system goes, we got to take over because we have an emergency. So then it causes this action potential and fires and sends a signal up into the brain. Well, the brain's going, there's never a signal that came. Where'd this come from? We better send backup. So then it rushes into action, and it floods the gates with reinforcements. So it sends a response over to the hypothalamus and over to the pituitary gland. It says we better get some support. So send out those hormones that we need to support healing and regrowth. And so then those got floating into the system. Well, what usually ends up happening is once that action potential stops in the nervous system, potassium comes back in and sodium goes back out, and it returns to this negative 70 millivolts. So that's how it kind of terminates the conversation. But what if, because we've trained our immune system to be overactive, what if the brain, or what if this action potential here happens at the nerve level, but at the immune system level, it keeps that action potential happening? Well, what ends up happening is the brain still thinks that there's an emergency, and it continues to send reinforcements. And what typically is reinforcements? It's in the form of inflammation. It's going to open the floodgates. It's going to say, hey, we got to get more oxygen to the area. We got to get more nutrients to the area. We got to get the macrophages and the monocytes and all these different cells to the area to help with, you know, the collateral damage that's going to happen as it repairs the body. So you have all this extra fluid that's now going to the body, increasing tissue pressure, which causes cell death, which causes pain, and all of a sudden my knees hurt. Well, as long as this action potential stays open, that inflammation will stay going. And as long as inflammation stays going, tissue damage continues to occur. And as long as tissue damage continues to occur, pain stays manifest. If that happens long enough, you start building up calcification, you start building up scar tissue, you start building up keloid tissue, that becomes more permanent pain. And that's, in a very nutshell, kind of the science. And this is, you know, stickman figure of a nerve cell. But if we break down the science of it, and that's very 100,000 foot view. But if we break down some of the science, that's how emotions are so powerfully connected to physical pain, because emotions trigger an action potential. Action potentials send communication to the areas of the body that's responsible to keep you alive. And they take their job very seriously. So when those signals go up and it gets a signal, hey, I need help, or something's bad, or this emotion is connected to, you know, this physical connection, then the action potential opens up, the communication goes flooding, the support systems go down, and now we have this physical pain that stays there time and time again. Now, the other side to that is every single one of your cells is intelligent. It really is. Like, a lot of times we think these cells, they just have a very rudimentary responsibility in the body, but when you look at the cell and the sheer intelligence of the cell and what they do, every single one of these cells has a communication pathway that it communicates to other cells. And in an effort to survive, if we didn't find a way to release or let emotions go, then it would change the physiological condition of the cell, and the cell would die. So what the cell ends up doing is the cell ends up harboring or holding in this emotion so that we can cope, so that we can continue to live. Well, if we never let that emotion out, then that cell continues in a slightly changed physiological condition, and it replicates in that same way. And now we have a cell that's slightly off, which keeps that physical pain in place. And so the conversation of emotions to physical pain really is understanding that the cells have intelligence. They're very smart, smarter than we let them in. The immune system doesn't need the nervous system in order for it to stimulate a response in the body. It can send its own neurotransmitters. It can make its own action potential. The endocrine system is kind of just the person in the middle getting pulled back and forth. Hey, I'm getting a signal, send some more of these, you know, dopamine or hormones or whatever it is I need to support it. And so it's constantly sending out more hormone. And you got to look at a hormone really is kind of more of it can be super fast in the response, but a hormone can stay in the body for a long duration of time. So the action potential may stop, but we still have these hormones floating around in the body still creating changes. And as long as those hormones are still floating around the body, still creating changes, then we still have a potential for those changes to still create that pain. So when we break it down, it really comes down to these emotions that we have. It's science. This isn't just, you know, the stars and the moon align and your back's hurting because you have emotional pain. It really is science. When you break it down and understand, the body works off of certain laws and certain ways that it functions. Emotions impact those laws and impact the way that the cells and the physiological conditions of the body work. And so when we have an emotional trauma or we have something that spikes those communication pathways, it creates an opportunity for pain, discomfort, disease within the body. And the longer we harbor it, the more permanent it becomes. So with that, Dana, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Ori. Really appreciate that. Guys, I hope you can really see very clearly this connection between the emotions and physical pain. It not only just physical pain, but other challenges in the body. It's real. It's not something that's made up. It's something that's really real. And so guys, for further information, always tune in to our bythacademy.com where we have more trainings. Thanks for being with us today, and we'll see you on our next broadcast.